Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today we're here to do a 4K review. You know I do these from a fan and filmmaker's perspective, and today we are taking a look at The Cell, the recent 4K limited edition release from Arrow Video. We're going to look at all the controversy with it, some of the little mistakes that might be in here, but ultimately we're going to decide whether or not it's something that you might want to rush out and get, or something that you kind of want to wait and see what happens with it. I'm going to give you all of my thoughts all the way around. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. All right. So The Cell. I actually had some people who were surprised that I was able to get this because as of the time of this recording, Arrow has pulled it off of their website in the 4K. You can still get the Blu-ray, but the 4K you can't get. I actually found this at my Barnes & Noble just a couple of days ago. I got it half off. The half off sale is still going on for another 4 or 5 more days as I sit here and record this. And the question is, should you get it? If it's out there in your store, should you get it? There is a problem with it. And I want to talk about the movie too, but let's just go ahead and address the problem real quick because it is a very minor thing and it only exists on the director's cut. And by this time, I'm sure a lot of people have talked about it. It comes in at about the 15-minute and 15-second mark and runs to about the 15-minute, 50-second mark. So you're talking about 30 seconds, 40 seconds here of an issue. And what it is it's only on the director's cut. It's not on the theatrical. You basically have a double scene. A short sequence repeats itself where the camera is flying over the desert and flies over Jennifer Lopez. It repeats. Instead of showing her watching like the cartoon laying in the bed and listening to that and then drifting off to dream and it goes into this, it does that, but it cuts it short and puts the flyover in twice. I didn't actually notice it the first time because you have to really be paying attention, and I had not seen the movie in so long. And then I was like, oh, that was a little weird because the audio from the cartoon is still going over. You can almost get away with it if it wasn't such a striking scene because of the dreamlike nature of the movie and the fact that she is going to sleep and dreaming. So it's definitely there. Arrow hasn't announced anything that they're doing. It's not on the theatrical. It is not on the Blu-ray. It is just on the director's cut, which is a bit extended because I think when I went into the non-directors, the theatrical cut, this problem where it should be pops up like a minute and a half earlier, but that's because of the difference in the lengths of the cuts. But that's the big controversy is that. So what it looks like to me is they just accidentally double overlaid that. I mean, it's almost like I've done it before where I just left a phantom clip on my timeline over my main movie or my main video line, and you watch it and you're like, oh shit, that was left over there. And I don't think it's not a big thing. It wasn't done purposely, and I'm sure they'll probably fix it. And that kind of comes into my advice on this is, and we're going to dig into the whole movie, but my advice on this, the reason I went ahead, I bought it knowing that was there because it's 50% off right now. So I was able to get it at Barnes & Noble for $24.99. Now I happen to have a credit of $15 because I'm a Barnes & Noble premium member, and they had Invasion by Arrow on 4K as well. And I bought both of these, and with that credit, this was $24.99, and I ended up getting both of these for like $40 or less. So, and I keep mentioning Invasion. I have it sitting right over here. I can do a review on this one if you guys want. You might see a clip or two in here from it. But I bought both of these and got them for less than $40. My thought was, if they issue a disc replacement, then I bought it at the cheaper price. I got it at a better price, and I was hold on to it until I get the disc replacement. If the disc replacement doesn't come, man, it's just not the end of the world to me, because I've got multiple versions of this on here, and it's a couple of seconds, and I don't know. It should be fixed, right? I'm not saying, oh, just let, screw ups go by. I almost said something else. Don't just let screw ups go by. But like, I understand how that probably got there, and eventually I'll probably do a disc replacement, and I'm cool with waiting. Like, that 30 seconds isn't gonna be like, well, thanks for letting me know. I'm not buying that piece of shit ever. Like, I'm not doing that. And I'm probably going to do another video about this, but I just wanted to throw this out there for a minute. People keep talking about, well, for the prices, the prices, it should be perfect. And it should always be a pristine version, 100%. But I don't actually think prices have raised, and this might be controversial, this might be a hot take. I don't think prices have raised as much as people think they have. So I was digging, I've been rearranging some of my movies over here, and I pulled out this movie. This is John Carter. This was a movie that flopped. I actually enjoy the movie. But this came out in 2012. The sticker's still on it. It was $35 for a Blu-ray. 35. And you say, oh, well, that's because it's a 3D Blu-ray. That was 13 years ago. It was $35 for a Blu-ray, just a studio release Blu-ray. You say, well, that's a 3D Blu-ray. Okay, well, fine. So I went and I pulled The Avengers, also from 2012. Just generic Blu-ray DVD combo, studio release, 13 years ago, $30. All right, nothing special about it. No bells and whistles whatsoever. And then I started thinking about it more and more, and I thought, I'm not so sure these prices have really proportionately gone up that much. So at that time, Blu-ray was the height. That's the best you could get, was a Blu-ray. And then I started looking as I was organizing this stuff, and I used to buy previously viewed DVDs from Hollywood Video at $15 a piece. And this was like, this was 2005. $15 for a used DVD. This is actually this next one's actually the best price I found on some of these that still had the sticker on them. And this is from 2004. This one was used, and the case is in really bad shape. So it was $9.99. $10 for a used previously viewed DVD that the case is like in bad shape. $10, $15. And I just say that because, I mean, I get it if you pay full price. It's like $35. But bro, John Carter studio release was $35 15 years ago. So I don't know if the prices have gone up the way we think. I mean, like right now, you can go to Amazon and order like Inglourious Bastards 4K limited edition or Demolition Man limited edition chunky box set for $30. $30. And when these were coming out, nobody was having to go back and do restorations to 4Ks and new scans. They were just putting it on here. None of that stuff had to be done. So there's all this extra process that's happening now. New art, all that stuff. So maybe just put some perspective in your price and give a little patience and a little grace if they do screw up. It happens maybe a little bit too much, but give some grace. They're not a giant studio. So, and I just don't think the prices have, I just think it feels like they're expensive because we're getting so many that we want to buy all the time, and it adds up quick. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. Now let's dive into the movie. I had not seen this movie since the theater, and I'm just going to tell you, it's weird as shit. And I forgot how weird it was, but it is. I'll give you the little stats because I mean, you can always find the stats for yourself. It's got HDR10. It's got Dolby Vision. It is a 4K scan of the original 35 millimeter negative. It's approved by the director and the cinematographer, which is a nice thing. The scan was done by Warner Brothers. The restoration was done by Duplatech and overseen by a few different guys from Arrow. And I hear this a lot. I want to clear this up now. You'll hear me talk about the restoration, and other people will just say the scan. The scan and the restoration are not the same thing. They are not the same. So, depending on what kind of shape the source material is in, you may have to do some restoration to the actual film itself, to the negative. You may have to do some restoration to the film negative first, then scan it in. So the scan is something different. The scan and the restoration are different processes. So you might have to do something to the film first to restore it, to get it in good enough shape to scan it in. And then once it's scanned in, you may continue your restoration with trying to fix problems, hairs, lines, cuts, any kind of burns, any kind of damage to it, new color grades, all that stuff once it's scanned in. So you got restoration can happen on the front end and the back end, and the scan is just converting it, putting it on a machine and converting it from the negative to the digital space. That's what it is. They're two separate things. And I often hear them used almost like they're the same thing. They're not the same. They're not the same. So Arrow, I really like that they gave that information that it was done. So it's a difference between the two. And now all that tech stuff is out there. The audio is the 5.1. So it doesn't have Atmos on it. To my knowledge, I don't have my Atmos set up complete yet. I'm working on it. Only got a couple piece of components left to get. But here is the cover art. Pretty trippy, as the movie is trippy. You have reversible art. I gotta say, I think I still just like the old art better. I do. I think I like the old art better. Than this, although I think I like this better than this. But I mean, all that's subjective. Art's subjective. I'm not too worried about that. You know, because they give us the option, and I like being given the option. I'm gonna turn it around the other way because I kind of like the old school better. And you see all the stuff fell out. So it's a 2-disc set. Make sure I got it on there right. It's a 2-disc set, and you get your 4K on here with both versions, and then you get the extras and stuff on the Blu-ray disc. You get alternate version. It's a 2K scan on the Blu-ray because it's presented in a different aspect ratio. So you get some different aspect ratios, some different shifting. You get a lot of different features. There's a whole big new feature with the director that's like a feature-length documentary or talking to, interview. So you get a lot of different stuff on here. So if you're looking for extras, it's packed with goodness. You've got multiple versions of the film. Let's talk about the movie. First of all, I did get, was it this movie? I'm just going to tell you guys, it also comes with a poster. So you get both the double-sided poster. I wish one of the sides had the old art on it, but it doesn't. So there's something interesting here. As I got the book, you get your little booklet with it that gives all the information. And if you want more information on all that stuff I was telling you before about the presentation, you can go look these people up. I've actually become more familiar with some of these places as I look to do my own boutique and acquire some films. So you can find out all kinds of information back there. What I was interested in when I was watching the film, and just so you know about my setup if you're new here, I have the Panasonic 820 player, and I have the LG C3 OLED. The colors look really good in the film. They are somewhat, in some places, maybe oversaturated. Now, I always hesitate to say that because color is subjective. Now, besides editing and color grading and stuff like that for a living making films, I also used to make a lot of side money by going and calibrating people's TVs and then doing the multiple color settings on them. So the first thing I did when I got my OLED about a month ago was spend all this time setting color settings. So this movie is, so if a movie has Dolby Vision, so I hear people talk about filmmaker mode on LG. That's a really cool feature because they worked with like cinematographers, directors, all this kind of stuff, and got the licensing to do this filmmaker mode to give you this very natural filmic look. But that still requires some tweaking. And when you have Dolby Vision, if you put a movie in that has Dolby Vision, it turns filmmaker mode off. So if you don't know that, it turns filmmaker mode off when you put in Dolby Vision. As a matter of fact, LG is working right now on doing that, on trying to work with those same people again to bring filmmaker mode setting within the context of Dolby Vision. A lot of filmmakers don't like it because it's constantly changing the metadata within each scene. So they're working on that, but right now it turns filmmaker mode off. And I wonder sometimes, like when we get a lot of side-by-side comparisons, if people aren't paying attention to that, if you put in a Blu-ray and you're watching in filmmaker mode on Blu-ray, and then you put in a movie that has Dolby Vision and turns filmmaker mode off, the filmmaker mode is most always, unless you set it, unless you tweaked it big time, if you put it in there, it's going to look darker and more muddy and all that kind of, just a little more drab than that Dolby Vision, because Dolby Vision is turning filmmaker mode off. So it's immediately going to brighten up. It's going to make things punchier and all that kind of stuff. So you have to make sure you're comparing apples to apples there. So what I do is, and maybe I can do a whole video if you guys are interested, because I want to get to talk about this movie, damn it. What I did is I do 3 different settings, and I'm going to try to show you some of this on the screen. So I do 3 different settings for a film with for 4K with Dolby Vision. And I do 3 different settings for 4Ks with HDR only. And then I do 3 different settings for 4Ks with no HDR or Dolby Vision, which happens a lot with Criterion. So that's 9 settings right there. Then I repeat those settings for like my 4K input from like cable and stuff. So I have at least a dozen settings. Took me about 6 hours to calibrate all those correctly, to set them all correctly, to test it, to put my settings, to do the tweaks, and then go back and check it and make sure they were right and all that. So what happens is, if I put in the cell and it's running a little darker, for instance, let's say it's running a little darker, I have 3 settings that I have done within the Dolby Vision realm that I can move to and find out the one that is best and most suiting to me, because it's all subjective a little bit. The one that is the best suited to me for watching the cell. So, and I did the same thing. So when I'm watching Invasion or The Cell or anything else, I have multiple settings that I can go through and find the one that tastes just right for that movie, if that makes sense. So if you're just going straight out of the box on filmmaker mode and you're trying to compare a Blu-ray to a 4K that has Dolby Vision, and you don't remember that it turns filmmaker mode off on Dolby Vision, at least it does on my C3, it turns it off. That Blu-ray is always going to look like crap by comparison for the most part. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, as a filmmaker and a fan, if you don't have the proper 4K player with cables and an OLED TV, I'm just going to tell you right now, it was mind-blowing the amount of change. So it's hard to evaluate if you don't have them, because OLEDs achieve true black. And when you can achieve true black, all the other colors become richer. And that's where, when I put in something like the cell, the colors get real kind of oversaturated, particularly when she's in the dream state, and that's fine, except for the skin tones go pretty orange. And I was having to change some of my settings to kind of find a happier medium there. And the movie goes soft. If you're looking for something that is ultra sharp, that 4K, what I call 3D pop, that you get with when it was shot with nice lenses, and because lenses create a 3D pop, that's where the subject kind of almost stands apart real sharp from the background. And 4K enhances that. If you are looking for that, you are not gonna get it through most of this film. This film gets very, what I call, creamy. You get a lot of very smoothing roll off between hard lined edges. And so if you're just looking for that like snap hard focus of 4K, this is much more dreamy, creamy. It's not going to be a hard, tight, crisp picture everywhere. Now, some places it is. So I'm guessing that part of it was lighting and stylistic choices, and I'm guessing part of it's the lenses that they used, because when they're outside and it's very bright sunshine and blue sky, they pop. They are hard edged. But like if you just go to where they're slightly in the shade just a little bit, man, it loses it fast and it gets kind of soft. There's, even when it's not in a dreamy state, like there's a scene, and I can't remember if I got it or not here, for what I can show. There's a scene where Vince Vaughn is over here in the kind of shade of an overpass, and these other cops are out there and they're in the bright blue sky, sun, all this. They are crisp, they are popping, and he's kind of muddled. So there is that. And I just, if you're looking for that, you're not going to get it. If you want like this dreamy, color popping, kind of creamy, soft edge feel, you're going to get it. Like I enjoy the movie. Like I enjoy how it looks, because I enjoy things looking different. But if you're looking for that just balls to the wall 4K crispness, you're not going to get it. Colors, you're going to get it. Because the dream-like colors and all that stuff, it pops. So just a little, that's just a taste thing. And it has to do with how they shot it and maybe what the condition some of the film was in. I don't know. So that happens. And so I can't say that it's like the crispest 4K pop that I've ever seen. Color-wise, it pops. Almost oversaturated in some points. But movie-wise, man, it's a trip. It's almost like someone tried to do their best David Lynch impression, but it's like they're doing a David Lynch impression, but they were said, okay, but do it as a dreamscape inside the mind of a serial killer. As the story is, Jennifer Lopez has developed this method to go into people's minds and root around and interact with them inside their unconscious minds in like a dream state. And they ask her to go inside the mind of a serial killer in order to find his last victim before she dies, because she's locked in this cell that is torturing her to death, basically. So, and then she kind of gets sucked into it to a point where Vince Vaughn, who plays an FBI agent, he's untrained, but he gets pulled into this world too. And they do a very good job capturing the weirdness of dreams, where you just kind of can be in one place in time and then take a step into the next room and be in another place in time. That weird way that dreams can do, where they're disconnected but somehow connected at the same time. I think they do an outstanding job of doing that from the perspective of a disturbed individual. So, and Vincent D'Onofrio plays a great serial killer in this. He's totally messed up. There's definitely like some evil devil imagery, good versus light, heaven versus hell, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of imagery as we're birthed by water, as this serial killer was when he snapped was being born again of water. All this kind of imagery, it's all there. It's not my favorite movie. I enjoyed it for what it was doing, but it's not one that I'm going to revisit a ton of times. If I wanted this feeling, I would go to David Lynch. I would go to a Lynch film. Understand what I'm saying. This is not a bad film. This is not a bad film at all. I think it's one that should be experienced by everyone at some point. If you're a cinema lover, if you're someone who loves movies, if you like David Lynch, you will probably like this. It's got weird sci-fi, weird horror. It's got that dreamy heaven versus hell, good versus evil, ethereal, surreal thing that David Lynch has. So from that perspective, I recommend it. But overall, it's one that I'm glad to have and study. It's not one that I'm going to pop on for fun. It's not, because it is pretty heavy and pretty twisted. But I just wanted to give you my thoughts on it. I always try to do that. I know I get a little heavy into filmmaking. I get a little heavy into things sometimes. But I'm trying to give you something that you don't get everywhere and get a little bit different perspective on it. And I hope you enjoyed it. And just kind of keep things in perspective. That taste is different. Your settings on your TV might be different. What you look for in a film might be different. What you perceive as an expensive price may be different. And usually, there's always three versions of the truth. Theirs, yours, and then the truth or whatever. But it's all for you to decide what you want. I recommend if you can try this before you buy it. If you're not sure about the movie itself, it would be one I recommend that you try before you buy. If you can. If you know that you like the movie and you want the best 4K experience ever, color-wise, you're going to get an explosion. Sharpness, beautiful detail of 4K, not as much. More dreamy, creamy, filmic in that way. So that's what I got for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie if you have it. And, we do everything here. 4K reviews, physical media news, lists, rankings, recommendations, all that stuff from a fan and filmmaker's perspective. If that's your jam, please like and subscribe, y'all. It helps us get found out there in YouTube land and continue to grow the pop culture family. If you want to support that adventure, you can join below at my Patreon link or right here on YouTube. Become a channel member, get your name in lights here on every single video. Behind the scenes, in-depth discussions. I respond to, how to do your TV, all that kind of stuff. It's all back there. My short films, all kinds of stuff is back there. All kinds of good stuff. It's like a big special feature bank. But it helps out the channel, and I really do appreciate it. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.